and welcome to the Polyhedron Collidecast, episode 7.
Hello.
The Farce Awakens.
Very good.
I'm Steve Cheetah from PolyhedronCollider.com, and with me are...
Andy Lewis, Sonic H.
And John Cage.
Now, I realise I've not done this before, but I should really introduce what this podcast is about. We're on episode 7 now, and I've just gone straight in, running into it.
It's probably about time we did.
Yeah, so... Polyhedron Collidecast is a podcast about all kinds of tabletop games. We mainly are going to be talking about board games, but we also talk a little bit about miniatures games, collectible card games, and RPGs.
And computer games sometimes sort of creep in there, but
They do.
mainly by reference to other games.
Yeah, well, and we go off on a tangent, so we end up talking about movies, beer, and video games.
No, we never get distracted. Oh, squirrel!
And to give an explanation of who we are as well, because I thought that one of the things that came up recently it was on Twitter, Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games was basically lambasting a podcast for having too many in-jokes and in-references.
Not ours, I hope.
I don't know. It might be, but to try and reference that, to try and remedy that, we do have a couple of in-jokes that we've managed to develop over the last 7 episodes. First one, ramshackle.
Yes.
Because we are basically sticking a microphone in a table in the middle of our lounge, this is a ramshackle podcast, so as Andy said in the last episode, no expense spent.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure you can't tell, but we're not professionals.
Well, not at this, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, no, not professional.
People pay us money to do things, but I sometimes wonder why.
But no, ramshackle was when we absolutely first started the first episode.
Yes.
You introduced it as ramshackle. I raised a quizzical eyebrow and said, "What?" And forever it has now stuck.
The other thing which we will reference from time to time is one person in this room has a favourite game which he likes to talk about a lot, and when he does, you will hear a ding.
Are you suggesting that that's me, John Cage, that I really like Talisman?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, no. Really like is an understatement.
Yeah.
It's a great game. A lot of people slate it, but... So I'm not the only one with an addiction.
No.
Andy has a particular board game designer that you're...
Yeah, well, I've mentioned this before, but I'm a bit of a Stonemaier whore, it would seem.
Got a bit of a man crush, haven't you?
Yeah, I like Jamie Stegmaier. I like his approach. I also like his attitude as well. He's very approachable on Twitter. He's very responsive as well, certainly from a sort of a client's manufacturer point of view. So, an all-round nice guy.
The other thing I wanted to say is the last episode, if you did listen to it, and if you did listen to it all the way through, thank you very much. It was a bit long. We rambled on a bit that episode. Would you believe I cut about 25 minutes out of that episode, and it still ended up being an hour and 3/4? So the aim today is to be a bit more shorter. A bit more shorter?
I'm on it.
To be have a bit more brevity.
For those of you who can't see, I'm not the tallest player in the world, let's say.
No. He's a natural halfling. So hopefully this won't be the complete slog, and we're going to try and do them a little bit more often. In the past we've been recording an episode every 4 weeks. We're going to try and do that every 3.
That'd be good.
It's a slight change that should hopefully mean that we're not trying to talk about 20 games every episode. So it's changing as we do it. We haven't really settled on a format quite yet. We've got a bit of a rhythm, but...
So let's have a look at some games.
So let's talk about some board games, eh?
Well, that's why we're here, apparently. Yeah. So you've just said.
Yeah.
Having spent 10 minutes not talking about board games.
So, one game me and Andy played a couple of weeks back now was Star Wars Rebellion.
Yes.
Now, I've mentioned
it 2 weeks ago, buddy.
Yeah. I've mentioned this game a couple of times in the podcast in the past because I bought it about 2 months ago, and that's the first time I managed to get to the table because I've been dying to play this game, and eventually played it, and it lived up to my expectations, I must admit.
So it's everything you were hoping it would be?
Yes, it was, definitely.
And
more? Don't know about the and more, but I was hoping it to be, yeah. We didn't play the full rules. There's optional special ability rules we didn't play with, so we didn't try that. We played basically, it's a Fantasy Flight game, so Fantasy Flight now do this dual rulebook system.
Okay.
Where every game now has 2 rule books. The first one is a learn to play book, and the second one is these are the rules in index format, in alphabetical format.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. So the idea is you use the learn to play rule book, and then once you've played it once or twice, all you need to do then is refer back to the indexed one. So
seems like quite a sensible way to do it.
It's quite a sensible idea, and I quite like it. I find it works You're not convinced, are you, Andy?
No.
So before we get into the detail of that, what's the game actually about?
Basically, this game is the Star Wars trilogy in one game.
Okay.
So it starts at exactly the same point where A New Hope starts. So there's a Death Star being built.
Yep.
There's a rebel base somewhere, and the Empire needs to destroy the rebel base, whereas the rebels need to turn the tide and get support so they can overthrow the Empire.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi is their only hope.
Okay.
Now, where it works is you've got this massive galaxy map. I mean massive, that it filled the entire table. So you've got this massive map of the galaxy, which will be spread out with Imperial forces, and you've got little models for Star Destroyers, troop transports, the Death Star, AT-ATs, ATSTs, Stormtroopers, and they'll be everywhere.
Sounds pretty cool.
And then
It looks impressive.
the rebels will have a small handful of snowspeeders, X-Wings, troops, and some Corellian cruisers.
Yeah.
And they also have a base, which is one planet which the Imperial player doesn't know where the rebel base is.
Okay.
And so as time goes by, there's basically the game ends when either the rebel base is destroyed or the turn marker meets the rebel counter. And what that is the turn marker, I think it goes to 1 to 16 or 1 to 14. And there's a little marker with a rebel symbol on. And every time the rebel wins an objective, they've got these little objective cards and they can play them, which will have things like control 4 territories or have rebel troops on so many Imperial planets.
Okay.
Or destroy a Star Destroyer, destroy the Death Star. Every time you play one of them, you move this counter further down the track marker.
Right.
So it becomes a double thing of there's a bit of cat and mouse because the Imperial player has got to basically scour the galaxy to try and find the base. And at the same time, the Imperial player, the Rebel player has to be playing these missions to try and make the game end quicker.
Gotcha.
So they're doing this double thing of they can either hold it. There's one way of doing it, it's just holding out. You could probably just build this massive base and hope that you don't find it until halfway through the game, and then
Or do what I did and basically find every fucking planet but the one you were on.
So from what you said so far, it's just a 2-player game, is that right?
It's technically, according to the rules, is a 2 or 4 player game. There are rules in the game to make it 4 player, but basically all that does is it says you've got space troops, space units and ground units, so troops and spaceships, and then you've got characters with little standy cardboard things, so they're characters from the films.
Yeah.
So Admiral Akbar, Luke Skywalker's in there, Leia's in there, and they have got Admiral or Commander. And basically what happens is one side takes the army general, the other person takes the admiral. So they divvy up the pieces between those two people. How does
that work with ground troops needing ships to move around?
Well, you've got to work together. So you'd have to say, right, I want to move my troops over there. Will you allow me to move over there?
Jeeves, move my ships.
Well, it'd be like a real army then, actually, wouldn't it? I need to move my troops over here, and the Navy going, bugger off, we're engaged in the Gulf.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, we're busy.
I'm eating fish over here.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but it took us about 4 hours.
Yeah, it was a long game. I mean, it's obviously a fantasy flight game, so I suppose taking 4 hours probably isn't that much of a surprise. But
sounds like a short game to me.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slog, but I think that's possibly just purely down to the fact that I just couldn't find Steve. I think there were 2 planets that I hadn't looked at, and he happened to be on one of them.
It's Steve's fault for not completing his.
I did
his
do a little bit of bait.
quickly.
No, it was a bit of both. I had a bait and switch because I can't remember. I wasn't on Mon Calamari, was I? I was on
Calamari.
Yeah, Mon Calamari, where Admiral Akbar comes from. It's the worst joke in all of Star Wars.
I've never heard that before. Brilliant.
Mon Calamari, and the spaceship he's in, Home 1, is a Mon Calamari cruiser. It's just like, can you not come up with a different name than Calamari?
That's outstanding.
So yeah, I had my planet. I had my base on one planet, and I wasn't defending it at all. I didn't put any troops visibly on there. So what you can do is you can mount troops on it visibly, and then put like hidden base troops.
Yeah.
But Andy was starting to surround it with lots of Star Destroyers and AT-ATs, and I was getting a bit twitchy. So I played this card which allows me, if I succeed in the mission, it allows me to move the rebel base. But he doesn't know. All he knows is it's moved. He doesn't know where it's moved to or from. And you can imagine like it's like the top half of a clock, the base, the map, because it does go out in an arc.
Yeah, okay.
So he was concentrated his troops at 1 o'clock, so I moved to 9 o'clock. Would be the best way of thinking about it, because he hadn't gone there. And
so without knowing it, you can sort of be sneakily moving your stuff around.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And most of the rebel missions allowed you to quickly move troops. Because the other thing I did is I had one of my mission cards was to, if I had any troops on Coruscant. Yeah, which is the
It's the breakfast planet.
where the Imperial base is, where the home planet, where the Emperor's Palace is. And there was a particular mission card that as long as I had troops there and no one else did, I got 2 points. I got 2 points a turn. You could bring this card back, which most of the times you couldn't. So I managed to get troops in there, and Andy was too busy going, no, I'm going to find his base soon, I'm not going to come back.
Fine,
so I sat there for 2 turns, that's 4 points, that's quite a lot of points, that is.
Yes.
And then I had this one card that was like, you must destroy a Star Destroyer. I was like, he's got 1 Star Destroyer, a couple of TIE fighters, just parked outside a Corellia. Go for it. So I attacked with Admiral Akbar, a fleet of X-Wings and 2 fleets of Y-Wings. And the other week, when we did the last podcast, I was saying how I really like dicing games. Because it allows you to do that kind of calculated risk.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was like, right, I can use Admiral Akbar to get cards, which will allow me hopefully to get rid of the TIE fighters. And then I can use the Y-Wings just to blow down his Star Destroyer. And it worked perfectly.
Brilliant.
The dice rolls came up right. The cards came up right. I went, boom, boom,
Basically,
boom.
I rolled 3 misses. If I'd have rolled even just 1 hit, I'd have won. But no, my Star Destroyers can't hit a bull's arse with a banjo. So I lost.
You have some of the weirdest phrases, Andy. Who does hit bulls' asses with banjos?
People in Texas, I don't know.
Sorry, any Texas listeners.
But it was a good game. I did enjoy it. I have to say, I did enjoy playing as the Empire because it suited my my game style. Of
Your dark nature.
Yes, yes, and the basically just stomping all over the galaxy and asserting my will upon people. I enjoyed that very much. Unfortunately, they slipped through my fingers. Just.
The more you tighten your grip, the more will slip through your fingers.
Yes. Yeah, well, what I should have done, I had a choice about halfway through the game. I was because you can draw cards, missions, objectives, so similar to the Rebel ones, and a lot of them are like either build or do research or whatever. And 2 of them were for the Death Star. One of them was I could build another Death Star. Or the other one was fire the Death Star. I just happened to be at Alderaan. I thought, ooh! But I decided to try and build one instead, and I should have just destroyed the planet. Just because I thought, if I have another Death Star, it means that I can just move them around. And
then you can destroy 2 Alderaans.
Yes, exactly.
Alderans.
But sadly not, and I think I should have destroyed Alderaan, because clearly that's what what's his chops did.
Moff
Tarkin, yeah.
Not Moff Tarquin.
Tarkin.
Jolly's on backwards.
Moff Tarquin.
Oh dear, yes. Well, you can smell his foul stench anywhere. But it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think just after that one play, there's a couple more strategies to employ. Because to be fair, I was holding back most of the game because the cards I was picking up weren't helping me. And I was going for little tiny quick. I mean, I tried to destroy Star Destroyer about 4 times on little attack runs.
And you failed.
Yeah, I did. I failed. But I could have, if I wanted to, I could have tried to build forces and go for a proper invasion. I could have been using infiltration to burn through that objective deck to find cards that I wanted.
Okay.
So, and then you could have done 2 things. The way you find the rebel bases, you could pick up these probe droid cards which show the planets. So you knew which planets I'm not on.
Okay.
So you could have spent time going through that deck trying to whittle down the planets.
Well, I did try, but you kept opposing me, which I thought very, very unsporting.
Yeah, I did stop with that, but because you were actually basically just going the approach of, right, I'm going to put troops on the ground on those planets and find him that way.
Yeah, pretty much.
So basically the entire board was awash with grey models.
I actually ran out of ground troops at one point. There were no more miniatures left.
There's no more stormtrooper troops left.
Brilliant. Well, he's not here. I think, I think I would definitely refine my tactics for that and just concentrate on half of the board to start with and just cover all of that. But then again, if you did your little bait and switch, I guess you could probably re-establish on a planet I'd already searched. That would be cheeky.
Yeah. that'd be cheeky. It's possible. So yeah, I'd like to play that again, but...
So it's a fine game. How much does a copy set you back?
Right. Star Wars Rebellion will cost you, recommended retail price, £80.
Ooh. But there is a lot in the box.
It's a lot in the box. I said the board was huge. It's not going to help people listening on the podcast, but the table we're podcasting on at the moment, it filled that entire table. The board.
It's about, 6 foot long?
So it was...
You will say.
And
2 meters.
It was, I would say, yeah, it was bigger than the Arkham Horror board or Eldritch Horror board.
It would fill a half-metre by metre long table and a bit.
And it was full of miniatures. So Stormtroopers, Death Stars, Star Destroyers, and they're all beautiful little plastic models.
Yeah, they're nicely detailed.
So expensive, but value for money.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something, I mean, we've touched on this in previous podcasts, but I think there seems to be a running theme actually with Fantasy Flight games. They're not the cheapest games, but you do get a lot in the box. I think they're good value for money.
They're a luxury item. I even think, I'm sure I remember hearing Christian Peterson, who is head of Fantasy Flight Games, even saying that they're not there as a quick pickup game. They're premium items that go in your collection. So yeah, I want to play it again. But I'm chuffed that I've ticked it off now because I have actually played it.
I want a rematch.
Yeah.
I think I'd better play it too.
You should play it.
Yeah, we should play it. But as I said, I think we could play it quicker next time because we'd understand the rules a bit better. But we were halfway through that turn marker after about 4 hours. So conceivably that game could go to 8 hours if the Rebels did really badly.
Yeah, okay.
Or...
Well, the Empire would find them.
Or the Empire could find the Rebels on the first turn.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it could be over very, very quickly.
It could be. Yeah, because you'd have no troops to defend your base. You'd walk in there with a Star Destroyer and a shitload of AT-ATs and you'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So that was Star Wars Rebellion.
Indeed.
Right. So what else have we got in the cupboard?
So what else have we got in the cupboard?
The cupboard's full.
And the shelves and the
floor.
One other Fantasy Flight game that we can talk about quickly.
Yes.
While we're talking about big expensive cardboard boxes from FFG, is Fury of Dracula 3rd edition.
Yes. This I wanted to say something actually when you were talking about the rule books before, but as we've elegantly slid into this one.
Elegant, yeah.
No, that's not a word we use often.
No, shirt tails and taffeta ball gowns.
Ever, yeah. Picked this up at the expo for 40 quid, I think it cost me. And this has got the dual rulebook system in as well. And I can see the point, but at the same time, it's slightly unhelpful because it might be limited to Fury, but it didn't contain all of the rules in the Learn How to Play, which was unhelpful.
But maybe that's just getting you into the game. So I mean, you might not.
Yeah, they're designed to get you into to play your first game, so it doesn't include all the rules. The Star Wars Rebellion one didn't include the rules for the special abilities.
No, but there were a few other bits and bobs. There were sort of certain eventualities that we found in the basic game that still happened that we needed to refer to the main rules.
Well, but
which is fine.
Is that eventualities, or I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but some games come up where things happen and you kind of go, well, hang on, how do we resolve that? Because you've got a conflict.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's due to badly written rules, sometimes it's down to badly written cards, and sometimes it's, as you said, you need to go further into the rule book for that.
Which I don't mind doing, but I don't know, it just seemed a bit...
Anyway, we're getting distracted because we haven't had to explain what Fury of Dracula is.
Fury of Dracula is a one versus many sort of seek and destroy game, if that's such a thing, where it's 2 to 5 players, where one player has to play Dracula, and between 1 and 4 other players play the hunters who are hunting Dracula around Europe. The canon and the characters are really quite closely based around Bram Stoker's novel. So you have Lord Godalming, Lady Harker, John Seward and Van Helsing. Yeah. Not sadly accompanied by Kate Beckinsale this time.
It's not canon, unfortunately.
No, it's not. It's well done in terms of the sort of lore, in terms of that sort of idea.
You're obviously playing in kind of Victorian era Europe.
Yes.
Everything in the cards evokes that kind of feel.
So it's very thematic.
It is.
Yes.
It
like
is,
that
yes. It is, actually. I mean, I like the artwork in the game, apart from one picture which has been pointed out to be a bit on the Hammer horror side. sort of dirty B-movie sort of picture. I think it's the picture on the box actually, where his fingers are sort of sat together like this, and he looks a bit cheesy.
Sounds like Mr. Burns.
Almost.
Yeah, he is actually pretty close to Mr. Burns.
He does look Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns with teeth. So the idea roughly behind the game is Dracula is trying to spread fear and disorder across Europe, which is represented on an influence track, and the object of Dracula's game is to fill that influence track.
Yeah.
And the hunters are basically trying to find Dracula and beat 7 shades of shit out of him, at which point they win the game. There isn't a strict turn limit to the game, but the further into the game you go, the more advantage Dracula has.
Okay.
So it's in the hunter's interests to try and find him quickly.
So is he kind of building an army of vampires as he goes then? Or?
Sort of. When he moves around, because Dracula moves in secret, you don't see where he is.
Okay.
Up the side of the board, there are 6 locations which are known as his trail. So these are locations, so cities around Europe, where Dracula has been. Dracula can only move by road or by sea. If he moves by sea, he suffers damage because Draculas can't move across water. But the hunters can move by sea, road or rail. And railways are, obviously they'll be further, but they're only connected to certain cities. The hunters can equip more and more kit. They have a hand limit, depending on the character. But kit can carry things like event cards, special abilities, weapons that give them advantage against Dracula and so on and so forth. Dracula also has his own powers that he can invoke if he's getting if the hunters get too close for comfort.
Yeah.
So Dracula can only move by road most of the time. So he moves from city to city, and each time he moves, this track essentially moves one space further up.
Okay, so all he's got to do is move around essentially without getting caught.
Well, yes,
but
it's not quite that simple.
What he's also doing is when he's in those cities, he's making schemes like birthing vampires or setting traps.
Okay.
And those schemes also move down this track as well. So you basically slide all the cards along the board at one stage. And if any of those schemes get to the end of the board,
they mature,
so they flip over and they'll have like, oh, you've scored 5 influence or whatever.
Yes,
right,
so you create a really powerful vampire, or an effect will happen.
So it's not just that he gets to the end of the track and then, he's at the end of the track, he wins.
No.
It's as those things are revealed,
it
becomes progressively more difficult for...
Yes.
The kind of timer ticks along rather than becoming more difficult.
Okay.
But as the hunters, you can try and foil these schemes. So you can see which of these cards have got scheme cards on top. So as you're travelling round, you will pick... If you end up on any city which is one of those cards, he has to turn over the card and say, oh, Dracula was here. And you know how long ago he was. So if you ever actually land on the spot with Dracula, he turns up and...
You're in the lodge.
You've got to deal with him.
Yeah, you've got to deal with him. But if you land on a square which is a scheme, you can then try and investigate the scheme. Now, some of them are also traps, which is a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, Dracula can choose or not to ambush if one of the hunters lands on one of his previous, what they're called, hideouts. Now, some of the little ambush cards or schemes or whatever they're called, event cards, can't be used to ambush. Some of them can. He can choose to ambush. And if so, then whatever happens to the hunter happens. So it could be a fight with a smaller, lesser vampire. It could be an angry mob. It could just be fog or something like that. Or
a fight with some fog.
Well, fog effects. It means that the hunters can't move anyway. So basically delays them and stops them moving for a couple of turns. Or he can not use the card, and it forces the hunters to perform a search, because not ambushing them probably means that Dracula wants to mature this card. So he wants to keep it hidden until it moves up the track.
Yeah.
At which point, obviously, he matures it, and bad things happen. So the hunters can perform a search action, and then they can basically force Dracula to turn it over. At which point, it may or may not have an effect. But it stops Dracula maturing it, and generally speaking, the mature effects are bad for hunters.
Yeah.
Gonna have a bad time.
Well, yeah, it's basically the points that Dracula needs to win the game.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Now, I played this game once, and in 4 hours we didn't finish this game. Or was it 3.5?
It was about 3.5. You weren't far off, actually. Because
you don't think? I thought we went far off Dracula winning.
How far did we get? About halfway through the track?
Yeah.
I don't think the game probably would have lasted much longer than an hour or so, because, as I say, the further into the game you get, the faster things accumulate for Dracula. Right. But at the same time, I was mooching about quite a lot, because it is in Dracula's interests to not be caught, but by not being caught, he doesn't actually spread much influence. If I'd have turned around and fought you instead of whisking myself away to the other side of the map like I did, if I'd have turned and fought you, and if I defeat a hunter, I get influence on the track.
Yeah.
So Dracula has a significant, certainly early in the game, a significant advantage in combat, because he's got a lot of hit points, he's got a lot of powers, and the chances are the hunters haven't accumulated many weapons and special abilities. So, but...
I found this game, because we played as a hunter, I found this game ridiculously difficult as a hunter. Now, I'd like to play it again, because I said I only played one game. You've played about 3 or 4 games of it now?
Yeah, 3, I guess.
3.
Yeah.
I'd like to play it again because I got a better gist of what you needed to do, but it felt like you had no power as a hunter. It felt like all the equipment cards I get were like, alright, I can see how one of them's useful, or one of them's useful in this situation and one of them's useful in that situation. So I wasn't quite sure I was supposed to burn through them or which ones to keep. Finding him was a complete bloody nightmare. It was fun. Don't get me wrong, this bit was fun because you're in Europe and we're going, right, okay, we know he's gone to Salzburg, where somebody's in Vienna. Has he moved into Germany or has he moved back to Romania? Or maybe he's gone round us and he's now in Spain. No, he can't be in Spain. But what if he did get around that way? And then people are going like 1, 2, 3, 4. We know he was there then, so he's gone 1, 2, 3, 4. Count that. So that bit's really fun.
And very entertaining as Dracula, I might add.
But at the same time quite frustrating because, again, I didn't know the game, which I think is a bit of a problem, which we mentioned about FFG games in a previous episode. You suddenly did something and we didn't know what you'd done, and you were the other end of the board.
Yeah, that was one of Dracula's powers. I mean, I know you guys all commented actually and reached the same conclusion about that. Dracula has 5 powers basically. One of them allows him to hide.
Is that something that you find out as you're going through the rules, or is it?
But this is my problem with some of the FFG games at the moment. Is that you need to have played the game 2 or 3 times to know what's in the deck to be able to play it properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Forbidden Stars, which is the 40k 4X game, that is a nightmare. You go into that game cold and you'll basically spend half the game flicking through decks of cards trying to work out what upgrade to buy. And I felt this game was like, well, I didn't know you could do that. We thought we were on top of you, and you just went, bash, we're gone.
I may have omitted to tell you certain things.
Also, when we actually got to combat, because we didn't fight you, we fought one of your underlings.
Yeah.
I went into combat and then basically found that I couldn't defeat a minor vampire because I didn't have the cards I needed to defeat them. You
did. The problem is, it's like essentially I think the combat's probably likened to rock paper scissors.
Yes. Rock paper scissors, lizard Spock.
Yes.
Because there's actually like 5 options on there. But I just felt that I thought I had a nice combination because I had a gun and silver bullets.
Yes.
So I thought, I'm in combat straight away. Fight the gun, you play the card that says, discard your weapon. So I've now got some silver bullets. What am I going to do? Throw them at you? It just...
Roll them on the floor and fall over.
It just felt everything about that game on the first play was a kind of a, ha-ha, screw you. I'm like, oh, I've just spent half an hour planning that.
I don't want to play anymore. Game over.
Flip the table, yes. Yeah, I think both sides knowing what everyone's capable of is probably an advantage for everybody.
I think next time I play that, I'd like to go through the cards on both sides and kind of see some of the things that would happen.
So maybe that's the answer, is just do a quick run through at the beginning if you've got people who haven't played, just so everyone gets a feel for what there is.
The basic the introductory rulebook doesn't let you use Dracula's powers.
Right.
So he has, to be honest, it really skews the game in favour of the hunters actually for that. Because Dracula is very ineffective when you're learning how to do that. But once you introduce Dracula's 5 powers, he becomes a lot more powerful. Like ridiculously more so, because he can just move around Europe almost at will to a point.
That does sound like it would make it pretty impossible for the hunters.
It does and it doesn't, because, as I say, whilst Dracula can move a bit more often and misdirect and hide in places, so it makes it look like he's moved but he hasn't, things like that, that's all very well and good, but it doesn't actually help Dracula achieve his goal. So it's basically just delaying the inevitable. It just makes the game last longer, essentially. Because at some point, basically, Dracula needs to turn around, man up and have a fight. Or play the game in such a way that he can mature his hideouts. The problem is playing a lot of his powers wipes out some of the hideouts, so he sacrifices them, which means he can't mature them. So they're balanced powers. They're very powerful, but they're kind of very polar opposite. Either very powerful for him, but on the downside is he doesn't actually get anything for it.
It sounds like, for Dracula, almost the best strategy is to just crack on and eat a few people as soon as he possibly can.
It is a strategy. I haven't tried it yet, but it's not a bad idea, especially right at the start of the game, because the hunters can choose where they want to start. Then Dracula chooses where he wants to start. So just start in the same city and just punch them, and then that's
presumably nom 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 on them rather than hit them. But
it's odd actually because the hunters can't actually die, bizarrely.
Right.
They get bitten, don't they?
They can. A bite doesn't actually kill a hunter, and it doesn't actually turn them into a vampire, but it does make them weaker.
Right. Okay.
So they suffer. They're forced to basically open each of their equipment cards face up. They end up if they get beaten up, they end up in the local hospital. A bit like Grand Theft Auto. You never actually die. It just costs you a bit of money, and you wake up in a bit of a daze. Whereas Dracula can be defeated because that's the object of the game. So the hunters don't die; they just get inconvenienced.
So it sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Again, it's another game I'd like to play again.
Do all the hunters? They're working together.
Yes.
So is it either they all win or Dracula wins?
Yes.
It's not like there's a competition between the hunters and there's
no,
extra
not
stuff.
It's hunters versus
literally
vampire, basically. Yeah. And if there's not four players to play the hunters, one or more players will play more than one hunter. There's always four hunters.
You always have to play all four hunters, don't you?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So one final question on that. How much does it cost?
Oh God!
It cost me 40 quid, and at the moment I can see it online for about 42. I'd imagine its RRP is probably 50.
Yeah. You're going to shop, it'll be 50.
So Fury of Dracula, 50 quid. I think it's worth it. I think 50 quid's probably a little expensive for what you get in the box, because it's not a huge amount of stuff, but it is very pretty. There's a lot of cards. The miniatures are quite nice. But it's a nice game. I like it because it has elements on both sides where you can be a git. So you can sit and be sort of nefarious as Dracula, but you can sort of lay smack down on him as a hunter. So it has elements that side. Because I've played as both sides now.
Snigger.
Yes. I think I enjoyed it as Dracula more just because it's more sadistic. But playing as a hunter is actually quite good fun as working part of the team. Because you guys, on Tuesday, Steve, you guys were very effective hunters.
We'd done a run actually. We realised that we played a hidden movement game like 3 weeks in a row.
Right, okay.
So I think we were all on point a bit there. Oh. Yeah, I said I liked it. I want to play it again. I just think before I go in, I'd like to have a quick shufty at some of the cards so that it's not a complete surprise. And I think I've got a better idea of strategy now. I think what I was trying to do was have cards for all eventualities, and I think you've got to go a little bit for that, like we do in Arkham Horror, and say like one character is a combat character, one character is a hunter, and one character is resources or something like that. So that was Fury of Dracula,
yes.
3rd edition.
3rd edition, yes.
I realise John has not played any of the games mentioned so far, so I think it's time to talk about Imps Devilish Duels. So this is a game by Triple Ace Games, currently on Kickstarter. And I say currently, and hopefully, like I said in the last episode, I'll have edited this episode in time for it to still be on Kickstarter.
Well, it is the 13th of July now.
You should stop mentioning the date. You could get away with more.
I'll try. I can edit him out.
What a grass.
So, Imps Devilish Duels, which I can't say duels for some reason. I'm really struggling with that word. Duels.
Not jewels.
Not duels. Duels.
Right.
Duels, sir.
I'll just call it Imps. It's a 2-player dice rolling and card selection game.
Yeah, sort of strategy kind of card.
Yahtzee with a bit of strategy.
Yeah.
Now, the aim of the game is you have 4 trials, which are the 4 elements.
That's it.
And you also have some imps, and you start off the game with 4 imps, and the idea is to kill the opposition's imps.
Yeah.
So the first 3 trials, which are earth, fire, and water, will allow you to manipulate the dice that are in play. The final trial, which is the air trial, if you win that, you banish an opposing imp, therefore progressing the game. So the game roughly works as you roll some dice, you pick some imps, based on your dice roll, you get to roll or re-roll some dice, and then you go through the trials and fight off.
Which is surprisingly hard to remember.
Yes.
without a cue card.
It did take us.
To be fair, when we played this, we had a couple of beers, which obviously wouldn't have helped the situation.
We'd had a couple of beers and a couple of whiskies, and we'd just played 2 months of Pandemic Legacy.
We were a bit stressed.
Where we
got spanked. We got absolutely murdered.
Yeah, got spanked. So I was trying to teach this game to you two, and I did wonder whether you'd both eaten stupid pills, because I played this game with Amanda like a week previously, and we played it in... The first game we played in like 15, 20 minutes, the second game in 10 minutes. And you took an hour to play this game.
Just making sure that we've done it right.
Absolutely, yeah. We're very methodical.
So I think for me, so there's the different symbols represent the different elements that you've got.
Yeah.
The different sections.
And to say as well, we didn't mention there's 4 different coloured dice as well.
Yeah.
So you've got different coloured dice, and you've got a pool of 8 dice, I think it is. So there's 2 of each colour.
2 of each element, yeah.
So when you start the game, you pick 4 dice to roll, and you can pick any 4. It doesn't have to be 1 of each element. It can be
2 twos.
2 reds, 2 blues, whatever you want.
2 1 1.
Yeah. And the way the game works is really what you're doing is you're rolling some dice and then making a decision based on those dice to hopefully influence it. So you'll roll some dice, you'll go, right, okay, I've done really well in red, I'm going to use a red imp. You then can either re-roll or roll 2 extra dice. So you can basically pick up 2 dice, either 2 from your pool or 1 of each, once already played, roll them again, add them up, and then go through the trials.
I think part of the reason it took so long for us is that you've got this hand of cards, these imps. Their abilities affect different dice. And because you play the rounds in order, things that you do for, like early on, so in the Earth trial, which is the first one, if you can weight that one well, so if you succeed in that one, if you have the highest dice score at the end of it, then you get to affect, depending on whether you've got just more than the opponent or double the opponent, you can either affect things or really affect things further down the line. And for each round that you go through, you can affect things again and again. So you might end up removing another person's one of their dice that's in the air trial, for example, or forcing them to re-roll, or re-rolling one of yours to try and increase your numbers. But I think both Andy and I were sat there looking at our imps, like this one can affect the air trial, and this one can affect the earth trial. So I need to make sure I've got some earth dice in this one, but no dice in the fire one. I think maybe we just tried to over-strategize things, whereas really what we should have just done is pick 1 of each and just roll them for the first round, see what happens, fiddle around with the dice a bit, and then try and skew things based on the imps from there on.
It took me a while to get it, really, just to really appreciate it.
I think the 2 of you were overthinking it, personally.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
It's...
I don't know. I wasn't convinced.
Right, it's a quick game. It's a light game. I said it should be a quick game.
Maybe that's where we went wrong.
I think it's designed to be a quick game. It is, and it's small as well. I mean, I've got
a postcard.
I've got a prototype version which has got a little 3D printed thing you pop the dice in.
Yeah.
And I think their aim is for that to be a piece of cardboard, like a folding system. I think that might be a stretch goal on Kickstarter. So you pop the dice into these slots to represent the 4 trials.
Yeah.
But it's really light. But I think I've written a review. I'm going to post a review soon. I think the game tricks you. It keeps thinking you've got decisions to be made. You've got a decision about which dice to roll. You've got a decision about which imps to play. You've got a decision about which dice to re-roll.
Yeah.
And then everything from then on just plays out. So if you win a trial, you can choose where you're going to use the benefits from that trial. My problem is it makes you think you've got strategy when I don't think you actually have.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you're just rolling dice.
No, actually, I disagree with that.
Okay.
That wasn't at the end of the game previously, that was the conclusion we'd reached, that it felt like you had loads of control because you got to choose which dice you roll, you get to choose which imps you play. But actually, because you can't really predict what's going to happen in any way, any kind of plan that you put together basically just gets shot to hell as soon as the dice hit the floor.
No, I disagree slightly. I can see your point. I mean, it was obviously very heavily dependent on dice, and if you got crappy rolls, then you were screwed. But one of the trials, I think it's the fire trial, if you won by a massive margin, by double, as John says, then you could remove one of your opponent's dice.
Yeah.
So essentially, towards the end of the game, I basically just thought, right, I'm just going to win all the fire trials because that means I just remove my opponent's air dice, and that way he's absolutely very little chance of winning the air trial. Ergo, I'm going to win this in 4 turns, and lo and behold, I did.
Yeah, and so as soon as you start to realise that that's the only thing Andy's going to do, because it's the only tactic that makes sense, the rest of your early game then becomes making sure that there's no possible way that Andy can win the fire trial. So,
I don't know, it just... Because that element of the game existed, I think it's slightly broken.
It just felt like that one, and I had an air imp.
It was a Nimbus.
Nimbus.
Yeah.
That allowed me to combine the water and the
that was
air
powerful.
together.
Yeah.
So you just add all those dice together for the final trial.
Now,
so
the caveat was it did allow it happened for both players. So it wasn't just you. But I agree with you. When I played this game with Amanda a couple of times, she ended up with Nimbus, and I felt that was too powerful because you only played that when you thought, oh look, I've already rolled 16 on 3 dice. He's rolled 4. Bang.
Aye, exactly. Yeah,
and winning the air trial was how you win the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, I did feel when you had Nimbus in play, I was at a significant disadvantage. So as soon as I got the chance to get rid of the little sod, I did.
But then once you'd done that fire imp then pretty much dominated.
Yes.
Because every time you build it up so that you could win with fire, and then you just... you just get rid of the whichever dice I'd rolled highest on for the air trial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was it. So it's in terms of strategy, it's a very basic strategy, and it takes advantage of the structure of the game. So in that sense, I think it's slightly flawed.
Okay.
It sort of felt like once you'd seen the game a couple of times, you'd probably, maybe it was just the couple of games that we played, but it was hard to see how else you would play out those.
Yeah.
You didn't see all the imps, I don't think.
Okay.
Because there was 12 imps in the set, and I did think it needed more imps. It was 12, and of course you'd pick 8 for each game. I think it needed a few more to mix things up.
Right.
Yeah, because you're almost, I mean, for 8 out of 12 cards, you're always certainly going to see 2 or 3 of them every game.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the same side, obviously, but...
and the game didn't, at the time, provide any way of distributing these at the beginning of the game.
Right.
It just said, choose your imps. Now, I think that needs like a drafting system built in.
Yeah.
We've done a drafting system, so what you do is you'll take like 5 cards, you'll pick one, you'll hand the deck to the other player.
Okay, yeah. So it's like football teams at school.
Yeah.
I'll have Gary, I'll have Stu. Yeah.
Oh, I don't want Stu. Or the other way you could do it is, because some of these are obviously have much bigger impact on the game, you could weight them. So you say those ones are worth 5. You can have a 5
they can be
5
point
imp and a 4 imp and a 3
Point
imp.
system, yeah, that'd be quite good.
Because then if there are ones that are quite highly powered, like the ones, I mean, we only played 2 games.
Yeah.
And it was pretty obvious which ones, out of those ones, which ones you'd pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone ended up with a fire imp and the...
and Nimbus, you're basically
Nimbus,
just going to win.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was okay, but I thought it was a bit skewed.
I think it was very light, and I think again there was less strategy then than maybe we thought there was. I said because you were relying on the dice so much, it fooled you a little bit, and it felt a bit more like, I think we used the equivalent of gambling. It felt like playing craps or roulette. You kept saying, right, my strategy's I'm going to go for red. Roll dice.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that was the bit I suppose that give you the chaotic element of the game. Is that right? I would like to do this, however the dice have let me down. I'm gonna get screwed. So you've got to deal with what you got. But then again, you pick your imps and you can re-roll 2 more dice.
I said you've got a little bit of control of it, but I think the control is a bit of an illusion with that. So I think it's a very chaotic game, personally.
I didn't hate it, but it's not my sort of game.
No. So what did you think of Imps, John? What was your opinion?
For me, it felt like... Well, I think we covered it a little bit, but I think it felt like there ought to be a lot of strategy to it. But by the time I played a couple of rounds, I realised there wasn't any. And it felt a bit it was a bit deflating for me, because I was hoping that I could come up with some strategy. That's part of the reason that it went on so long, I think. I was hoping I'd come up with something clever, and then, it's not always going to work out, but you'd hope that on average, generally, you'd be able to sway these things. Whereas I felt it didn't really matter what I planned. Whatever I did, it just went some other way. And not always badly. Sometimes it went really well, but not because of something that I put in place.
Yeah.
It's just random. So maybe that's just how you need to take the game, and I approached it wrongly.
No, I kind of think I agree with you. I thought I was trying to add too much strategy, I think, and really just got to realise you just got to go with the dice. We're just giving our opinion. Depends what you out there are like. None of us hated it.
No.
None of us flipped the table and went, this is crap.
No, not at all.
We all kind of, it's all right.
It did have entertaining moments.
I'd be interested in playing it a few more times with different people. and see whether that changes it, and play it a little bit more sober, to be fair.
And see what different imps do to the game as well.
Yeah.
So I think 'cause we've only played twice, wasn't it, John? I think. Yeah.
And we played with the same.
Did you play the same imps both times?
Yeah.
Did you?
No,
Right.
no.
Didn't we?
I don't.
I'm pretty sure we
Oh,
did.
maybe we did actually. Yeah, I can't remember.
Right. Okay.
Maybe we did. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you do need to mix them up a bit. Yeah. Anyway, that's on Kickstarter at the moment. Triple Ace Games. Imps Devilish Duels.
Yeah. Well done.
And I said
You
Triple
can't
Ace.
spell jewels.
But they can't see that, so.
Andy! Could have got away with that. Very quickly, because we've already talked about this in the UK Games Expo podcast, Crisis is on Kickstarter at the moment as well.
It is. Go and back it.
Which is a worker placement game with a very strong economic theme and very strong economic mechanics, I think.
So what does that mean?
What that means is, right, very brief, because I said, go back a couple of episodes if you want to hear our immediate thoughts on it.
Yeah.
It's a game where you have to rebuild the economy.
Yeah.
So you get victory points for building factories and exporting goods.
Yeah.
You lose victory points for importing goods, importing workers, I think.
Yeah.
And you also have to work semi-cooperatively because you have a chart for the economy as a whole, and if the economy tanks, you all lose the game.
Yeah, that's the victory point. So every turn you need to build a certain number of victory points to kind of keep up with the economy.
Is this game by any chance sponsored by the UK government?
Well,
no.
Weirdly, we played this before
Brexit.
Yeah.
And now it seems oddly relevant.
Yeah.
Are you sure this doesn't have at the bottom signed off by Nigel Farage or something? Brackets, here's my plan.
Good lord, now there's a big red bus in the background as well. We promised 350 million to the NHS. Honest.
We're hoping this game might find it.
It's a really clever game, I thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it worked really well, and you can't be too much of a git to everybody, because the driving factor of the game, obviously the VPs, you have to generate enough, otherwise everyone loses.
So yeah, you can't be too greedy, which is quite on theme, really. One person's too greedy, they're going to ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure you're just balanced. You're in the lead, but at the same time you're not making anyone else lose.
Yeah.
And the way the factory works was quite cool as well, because every factory needed one worker to make a bog standard output. But then you could put specialist workers in certain slots on the factory board, which would generate more outcome.
Yeah, so you get a multiplier effect or an additional effect depending on which workers you put on there. It was really quite clever.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. It was a very good game, very nicely built, looks good. It's almost dystopian but not quite, so it's almost sort of depressed but not
Yeah,
horrible.
It's that kind of near future.
Yeah.
It's that kind of post-Brexit.
Yeah, the sort of depression sets in. Oh, God.
The artwork was that kind of, not Art Nouveau, Art Deco sci-fi kind of look.
Yeah, almost Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost.
John's looking at me like I'm a complete lunatic at this point.
It's got nothing to do with the game.
It's got everything to do with how uncultured I am, though.
So go back and listen to our podcast from 2 podcasts ago from UK Games Expo. Go look at our review on the website as well, and then go back it, because if you're remotely into worker placement or Euro games,
Yes.
you're going to love this, because I said it's thematic, it's got nice chunky decisions in it.
Yes, and nice chunky meeples too.
Yeah. It looks very nice.
Needless to
as
say, I am already backing it.
well. Oh, right. Oh, well, a ringing endorsement there.
Yes.
So that was Crisis. So still on the theme of Kickstarter, a Kickstarter which is now being delivered to backers in the US.
It has been, yes. The is it the Brawling Brothers?
Yeah, there was a picture of them looking particularly smug.
Yes. I don't like them anymore.
No, we've gone off them.
No. Of Scythe.
Them and their deserty Albuquerque ways.
Yes, damn them.
Why so angry?
Because I want a copy and I can't get one yet, and it's not fair.
Two things they look smug. The second thing is, on the podcast they keep talking about churros. And you can't get churros in this country, and I'm annoyed.
Yeah, they are
churro?
nice. Churros, yeah. They're like donut things.
Like an extruded donut.
Like a Twinkie?
No, like a soft donut. You know, like your proper British fairground donuts, you know. They're like that, so it's like a batter, deep fried, and then usually covered in shitloads of sugar.
Really good for you.
And then
Sound like it.
with like a really thick hot chocolate sauce.
Oh,
You get them in Spain. I got some when I went to Barcelona. We had some. And did you not? Were you not with us when we went to the? This is where it gets really weird. The Victorian Christmas Fair in Worcester, UK. We came out of a pub at 5 o'clock, and there was a stand selling churros. And the stand was manned by Swiss people selling Mexican-style churros in a Victorian Christmas market in England.
No, I don't remember that.
Because we still voted to leave.
Some people have no appreciation for the finer things in life, clearly.
They're damn good.
They are, especially after you had a few pints and you're desperate for some fat and some sugar.
Absolutely, yeah. But they were nice. But so the Brawling Brothers are posting this collector's edition of Scythe on Twitter. So I looked at them with disgruntlement, if that's a word. It is now.
So what's Scythe then?
Scythe is another Stonemaier game. It's their most recent Kickstarter.
We didn't have a buzzer, don't we?
And I wanted to talk about it last time, but my mind failed me. So here we are. We've got a review on the website, so I won't spend too long on it here, so people can read all about it. Mm-hmm. I had a quick run through at it, and it was relatively quick at Games Expo. We played a shortened version. So essentially, the idea of Scythe is that it's an alternate history where you are trying to potentially take back control of the country after a bit of a skirmish has occurred.
For how many players?
6, I think.
Minimum?
No, up to 6.
Right.
Sorry. No. This isn't Twilight Imperium.
2 to 6 then?
I think it's 2 to 6, yes.
There is even seen some solo rules floating around as well, so you
Okay.
can play it one player apparently.
Oh, really? Okay, nice one. We played it with 5, and that seemed to work quite well. Mm-hmm. The game board is actually quite large. It's not quite as big as Star Wars Rebellion, but it's not far off. It's a hex-based board.
Yeah.
Each hex contains a specific type of terrain, and each specific type of terrain contains a particular type of resource. So mountains contain ore, plains contain oil, things like that.
So how do you win?
Right, you win by putting down a bunch of stars, and it is always stars. So similar to Euphoria in that sense. So Jamie's obviously pulling elements of previous games into this, but Scythe, I think that's pretty much where the similarity to Euphoria ends. So you're putting down influence stars to try and win at various bits and bobs.
These are stars on the hex tiles, or
you get a mission card. So if you complete that mission, you'll get a star on the card. Mm-hmm. So depending on what you do in the game, there are certain elements that you can put stars down on. Okay. So again, like Euphoria, there's a secret mission, you put a star on that. You can control areas, you put a star on that, things like that. But we played a 3-star game. I think the full game's 6 stars. I think if I'm right. So everyone has to put down, the first person to put down 6 stars. Doesn't necessarily win the game, but that's when the game will end. Because there are 3 tracks on the game. There's one for, it's kind of power at war, so prowess, fighting prowess. And then there are 3 other tracks. One's for morale, I think it is. Another one's for, is it economy? Something like that. And there's a third one, and I genuinely can't remember what it is.
Science.
Possibly.
Or research or something like that.
No, but not far off it. But when you've got a certain level in each one, there's a multiplier. And so you end up using that multiplier to multiply your points. So you, obviously, depending on what you've got on each track's slightly different multiplier levels. So just because you've done badly in one track doesn't mean you might have lost the game. So it's a worker placement game, but not similar to his previous ones where your meeples actually do all of the actions. You have one meeple that sits on your player board that you move, and it represents one of the actions. So there are 4 actions you can take. There's a move.
So each person's got a player board. That's where your resource tracks sit.
No, the resource track sits on the main board itself. Each person has 2 player boards, actually. One where they store... yeah, it's quite a big game. The main player board is dual level as well. So there's recesses in it. Each action...
Hold on. Yeah. There's recesses in the main board?
In the player boards.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah. So where you put your cubes or...
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it stops them slipping all over the place when someone knocks the table.
Not just that, but in the recess there's a little image. So you've got pictures on the player board where you can take one of 4 actions each turn. So every turn you make 1 action.
Yeah.
So you either move, you either upgrade, you build, or you do something else. I forget which one it is.
Some other thing.
Yeah. And you can never do the same action twice, so you have to do something else next time around. And each action has 2 elements to it. So you get essentially a cost and a benefit. So you can pay a certain amount of resource to gain, say, an upgrade, and you can upgrade one of the actions, so you can make an action better. So you get the dual level player board essentially has a series of images on it which represent, say, a cost of material. So you pay, say, 3 oils, and what you can do is move a cube that obscures one of these recesses.
Right.
So you take it out and it reveals the same image, and then you can put it onto the cost. So essentially you take the one from the benefit and put it onto the cost. So essentially you reduce the cost of an action and you increase the benefit of it. For example, that would be an upgrade.
Okay.
And then that's why you get the dual layer. So yes, it stops things rolling around, but there is actually a purpose to it. It's one of the mechanics of the game.
Okay.
Or you can breed essentially. So you can create meeples to resource farm essentially. So if you've got a bunch of meeples, the action is that it acts upon a hex, which has actually confused the hell out of us to start with, because we all thought it was like one meeple can do one thing, but it's not. It's you do the action on that entire hex. So if you've got millions of meeples, little worker meeples on one hex, it'll produce a resource for each meeple. So if you've got an army of these things, you can produce shitloads of resource, which is the tactic I went with. But it didn't work. Because everyone else decided to build a mech.
So conceivably you could put loads of meeples into the mountain space to mine loads of ore if you need loads of ore. Right.
Yes.
Right, hang on. Use the M word.
I did use the M word. That's the other
mech.
bit. Yes, that's the second bit. So
I thought you were going to say meeple.
no, mechs and meeples. It's based on alternate history. So you have farmers or resource gatherers, I suppose, and mechs. You get these fantastic little miniatures. So everyone has a different player board, and each player board is very slightly different. So you don't get the same game twice in essence. Each player has a different power, and they have different mechs. Now, mechs generally do the same thing, but they all look different. So it's quite an impressive
It looks
looking
nice.
game. It does look nice,
Bling,
yes.
bling.
And each mech has a certain, the number of mechs you put on the board reveal different abilities, because there's 4 mechs, and you take a mech off, and there's a little ability underneath it. You can choose to deploy them in any order you want, but so like one can move across water, one can move through tunnels, things like that. And you can deploy a mech, and meeples can't cross water initially, but mechs can. So if you want to explore around the rest of the map,
Are they
you need to build a mech.
vampires? The meeples.
No, they are not. No, they are not. No, well, not in the game we played. So you can use mechs to move around and gain access to other areas of the board and expand your borders, and so you get more access to resource. And ultimately, the idea is that you've got to sort of beat everybody else to doing things. Mechs can also fight. Meeples don't.
Okay.
So you can get to battles. You also control a single miniature, which is the leader of your clan. And he basically acts like a mech, but he's got special abilities as well, so he can wade in and slap people about or whatever it is. As I say, we only played a very limited game, so I don't know all of the rules. So I'm not going to claim that I know all the game inside out. But we did play it, and it was very good fun, and I really enjoyed it.
So that's a lot of elements.
Yes.
What does one turn look like? What do you do in one turn?
You will put your sort of main meeple onto your player board.
Your commanding officer.
It's your turn marker, really.
Okay.
Separate to your leader.
Yeah.
The leader's on the main board. So you put the meeple on your player board on one of 4 actions. And there's a description of what you want to do on the board, on that action. So it does vary depending on the board. So you will either pay a certain amount of resource, or it would multiply your meeples, or you could mine a certain amount of resource. And you would also get something else at the bottom as well. But it's all written on the player board, so you'd do that. So you'd either move people around, or you'd move a mech around, or you'd move your leader, or you'd mine resource, or you would upgrade one of your actions and things like that. Or you'd build a mech, that sort of thing. And then it would pass to the next person.
Okay.
And then they would do one thing, and then the next person would do one thing. And when it came back around to you, if you'd say moved on your last turn, you had to do something else. Yeah, you have to do something else.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got to sort
it
of
suddenly clicked now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So it's not like worker placement in that you're grabbing actions off a board.
No.
What you actually have is a limited set of actions, and you can do all these actions every turn.
No,
Just
you only do
one.
one of them.
And you can't, and you can't do the same one that you
action
did last
twice.
time.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
That's where I'm getting confused. All right, okay. So it's not really, it's more of an action selection than worker placement.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
because
it's
worker
not-
placement implies you've got several workers and you're trying to grab resources off other people.
Correct.
Whereas this is more, right, I've got this action, this is the action, I'm going to take this turn, and I'm going to be screwed if someone else takes a different action.
Yeah.
So the thing that you're really doing is the worker placement aspect, so the limited resource that you're controlling,
Yeah.
is that you can only do one thing. You can only move a thing, or you can. I can't remember what you said the other actions were.
You can mine resource, or you can move, or you can build.
Yeah. So that's your limit. Is that it's not that you've got lots of things that can do lots of different things, and you've got to get the best combination of a few of those. You've got one.
Yes.
And you got to pick which thing that turn.
Yes.
You're going to make use of.
That's correct.
So how do you actually get these stars then?
You start with them at the start, but you've got to put them down onto certain things. So once you've got rid of all your stars, basically.
So all right then. So how do you put them down?
I don't know because I never managed to do it. But
okay, so you didn't score a single point in the game you played?
No, I didn't.
Did anyone?
Yes. Juliet did because she'd been playing it all day and knew the game inside out.
Was she the only one that scored any stars?
I think one of the other players did. They achieved their sort of secret mission. So you get a card that says you must achieve like 20 meeples on one hex, or you must mine 20 ore, or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And then you would be able to put one of your stars onto that card, turn it face up and go, right, I've got that. So that would be it. There were others, but I genuinely can't remember what they are. So
to some extent, it is another game where if you've never played it before, there's a good chance you'll get it horribly, horribly wrong the first time you play, and then you'll have a much better feel for it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Thinking of that today, I think.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I quite enjoy playing a game and spending a game getting it horribly, horribly wrong, but not everyone does.
We've heard my 3-game theory.
3 games.
Yes, you have gone through
You
it before,
did mention it.
Yeah, so because I end up playing a lot of games to review and on the podcast as well, I always say to get a gist of the game, you need to play it 3 times. The first time you learn the rules. Second game, you learn the strategy. And the third game is when you actually form your opinion. But there are some games where you play one game and go, this is fucking awful.
I was going to say,
I don't learn the rules, I don't learn the strategy.
I'm pretty sure I form an opinion like that. But
but that's what I said. To try and get the reviews and try and get a balanced opinion review.
The third game is when you form a more valid opinion.
Yeah, balanced opinion.
Yeah, there are people out there who swear you can't review a game unless you've played it like 10 times, but quite frankly, there were some games if I played 10 times I would have shot myself by now.
But that was Scythe.
That's Scythe,
As I say, it was only a kind of a demo preview at UKGE, so my opinion is obviously limited.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I think it's probably, from what limited I've seen of it, it's probably the most balanced of all of Jamie's games so far. But I say that obviously with a bit of a pinch of salt because I haven't seen all of the game yet. But then again, I do like viticulture, and that's very balanced.
All right, we'll take a good stab at that when we've got a copy.
Yes.
Yes, this might be several months' time.
Which might well be a while in the future.
Yeah.
And then we'll report back on it.
Definitely.
Right, I think it's time to get some questions. So, the first question is off of Mr. Sid Gill, which says, when playing Battleships, what strategies do you prefer? Systematic search and destroy, random pot shots, or something more sneaky? Now, I should point out, we referenced internal jokes at the beginning of the podcast. Mr. Gill is a friend of ours who isn't really
in
much
the loosest sense.
It's someone we've met.
Who is trying to wind us up. So we're going to put professional answers to this.
I think we should, yes.
Well, it's slightly relevant because I mentioned Escape from the Aliens from Outer Space last week. We've just mentioned Fury Dracula. We mentioned Spectre Ops in the first episode. You could say those are all advanced versions of...
Yeah. It's a
Battleships.
highly sneaky runaway kind of game, although in Battleships, the battleships don't actually move.
Yes. Well, I do think that Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space is basically Battleships when the battleships do move.
There you go.
Yes, you said that. I think you said that last time, actually, yeah.
Because when you're sitting across the room from people playing that, all you can hear is like, I-43, clear!
Fire in the hole!
I haven't played Battleships in years, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember that I took a rough scatter to try and cover a reasonable proportion of the board. And then, depending on who I was playing, I'd probably have a feeling for whether they'd be more likely to just stick them all around the outside of the board because it'd be funny, or clump them all in the middle because it'd be funny. It might be one person, by the way.
Put them all in one corner.
And they're the same person here.
They're the same person. But they were pretty good at just shifting tactics around, so I never found one strategy that worked. Just do a bit of random chaos, I think.
Randomness, yeah. You got to do random. You got to try and be random to make the other people a bit twitchy.
A bit random's always good, and then try and fill in the biggest space that's left, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd probably agree with that.
You've got to play a bit like poker, really. If you play it properly, haven't you? When you say something, you can see them twitch a bit. Like, ooh, that was close. Right, okay, B5. We'll try B3.
Oh, it wasn't B3. It was C5.
I think I'm probably more of a slightly systematic seek and destroy, although I will take pot shots first. Because obviously you've got to work out, as you say, you've got to take a random scatter just to get a picture of where they may or may not be. And then see where you go. But I'm generally...
You do realise there's bound to be someone somewhere who's done a PhD on the optimum
probably.
pattern to...
It wouldn't surprise me if someone's written some code.
Well, funnily enough, I did once try playing Battleships using... I'm a software engineer, and I did try playing it once with a binary space partition just to try and... So you put one in the middle, and then you divide the space up into ever-decreasing bits that are left.
Yeah.
So slightly less random.
But leaky hosepipe solution.
Leaky hosepipe.
Right. Well, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I only vaguely got that.
So I'm basically chopping. So I put something in the very center space, and then I put something in the 4 quadrants around it, and then something in the quadrants.
It's the leaky hosepipe problem where you have a hosepipe, it's got a leak in it, so you don't know where the leak is, so you cut it in half, and you see which side's leaky.
Binary chop.
Yeah.
But in 2 dimensions.
Well, if you've got a leaky hosepipe, Steve, you might want to get it looked at.
And he's back. Even without beer.
Oh, yeah, this is super handy to know.
I think we've given Sid enough time, really.
I think that's enough.
So, another question off We're Not Wizards. So they're a podcast which, funnily enough, started about the same time as us. So another UK-based podcast, north of the wall.
Winter is coming.
Do they know nothing?
No, as in north of Adrian's Wall, so up in Scotland.
Well,
I'm not going to do a Scottish accent because I'll insult their intelligence.
A Bonnie podcast.
Oh, God.
We've just lost them now. The amount of abuse.
I am the one person here who doesn't pretend to be Scottish, at least.
I don't pretend to be Scottish, I just like wearing a kilt.
Fair enough. It allows fresh air around a bit.
It does, it's brilliant.
That's it. I've been on holiday there every year since I was born. That's basically Scottish, right?
And I used to live there, so, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move swiftly on.
I went to uni there, yes, I did.
Anyway,
for a long time.
They ask, what do you guys think of the legacy type games? Should board games be so fluid?
Well, I think the only one I've played is Pandemic Legacy.
Yes. Right. Little bit of background, just in case you don't know. Legacy is quite specific because I've noticed a lot of people on forums getting what the concept of a legacy game is wrong. So a legacy game is a game which you play concurrently, so you'll play several games in a row, and what happens in one game affects the next one. And when we say it affects the game and changes it permanently.
Yeah.
So you'll rip up cards.
Much to Steve's distaste.
He hated that.
You'll write on the board. You'll put stickers on the board that change the layout of the board.
Yeah.
A campaign game is not a legacy game, and I'm seeing a lot of people getting confused and saying that campaign games are legacy games.
Yeah.
So campaign games like the Descent series from Fantasy Flight Games. I've even seen people say the Pathfinder card game. They say because you write your stats on the one card, it's a legacy game. Well, no, because you can do that on a separate piece of paper and you can still play the game and reset it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a campaign game. Is a game where you play one game after another, and again, what happens in one game will affect the next game. So you might improve your character, or it might have a story that progresses.
Yeah.
But at any point, you can deconstruct that game and start again.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas a legacy game, it's permanent changes.
It permanently affects the board, the cards, all the rest of it.
You can never go back to the beginning.
Yeah. So once you've played it through once, that's essentially it.
Yeah.
Unless you're very good at unsticking stickers and rubbing out things you've marked. And
It's more like an RPG in a way. Your character permanently develops.
Well, no. I wouldn't say it's like an RPG. I think a legacy game is a very specific thing. An RPG, again, your character is a campaign.
Yeah.
But an legacy game is it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons and writing things in the player's handbook that change the stats or rules.
Exactly, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
we only played one between us, which is Pandemic Legacy, which we're about nearly halfway.
Yeah, we've finished
Somewhere
May twice, haven't we? Because we were dreadful.
We did dreadful at May. We lost May twice.
It was awful. I mean, we were 2 turns before the end. we thought, and on the second time we played May, the first time we got our arses handed to us, frankly.
Well, I think it happened. The same sort of thing happened both
I
times.
think, the same thing happened twice.
We won't go into it in too much detail, but essentially, we had a choice of either trying to stick with it and stick it out and take the long route round, or decide that there's no chance that we're ever going to survive that long. We might as well just go for it, and either we win or we don't. And unfortunately, we didn't. Twice.
We chose poorly. But I mean, we were 2 turns away from the end, and then literally we were fine, and we were thinking, hey, we will actually have a chance here. 2 people had their go, game over. Yeah. It was that harsh.
Oh dear, it's going wrong. Crap, it's gone very wrong.
Yeah.
So if you know Pandemic, you have several ways in which the game can end, and I think on one we actually got 3 different ways it could end in one go.
Yeah.
So the outbreak marker, which pootles down, hit the end of game. We ran out of yellow cubes.
Yeah.
And
so the world panic. There was an outbreak of a particular virus that was so widespread that it had gone mad.
Yeah.
Literally gone viral.
There were Pokemon everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's the only one we've played. I mean, to be fair, there's only really been one Legacy game that's come out before that, which was Risk Legacy.
Ah, yeah.
So
Did either of you ever play that?
No, I've not. It's one of the ones I was thinking about picking up, but when Pandemic Legacy came out, I just kind of went,
Ooh.
I'll go for that instead.
Yeah.
But that's similar kind of thing. You write names of cities on the board, there's cards you rip up, there's ability cards you keep, and then you do put stickers across which completely change the board.
Oh, really?
Now, I don't know how much of a plot, because one thing I would say about Pandemic Legacy, there is a plot that goes through. There is a story which is progression. So most of the things that happen between games is developing, there's one particular virus, and which virus that is will depend how your first game went, which is mutating, and that's the story, and where that happens in the world will change between players.
Yeah.
And where your research stations are, where you can get to name the viruses, which is quite good fun.
Yeah, we enjoyed that.
We'll come on to that in a later podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah. We might have to do a spoiler cast, I think. When we finish Pandemic Legacy, we'll do like a short spoiler cast where we just talk about Pandemic
Yeah,
Legacy.
stick it after
else.
the credits or something.
Yeah.
What do we actually think of it, though? Not specifically Pandemic, but the elements of it.
This is it. It's hard to differentiate at this point between the concept of a legacy game and just Pandemic, because that's only...
I like it, I think,
Yeah.
in a way. I think I like the idea that if you do well or badly in a particular month or in a playthrough, that you will affect the game in future. I suppose, presuming that the game is scaled in such a way that even if you do so badly, like we have, that there is a limit to the effect that actually has on the game. And that seems to happen because...
what it's doing is, as you lose, you get more upgrades,
Yeah.
and you get more ability cards. So it
gives you more help.
It gives you more help. Yeah.
Exactly. So it seems to be balanced like that, although it does seem to be getting extremely tense. I mean, we've finished now, April and May we've just finished as well. We played May twice, and even in April, with all of the stuff that's happened in the game, it is getting genuinely stressful.
I wasn't up for playing that second round of May, but you guys forced us into a second losing streak.
I've got to admit, I've not experienced that level of stress with a game before, because you know it's going to have a permanent effect. Because I don't want to go into what the mechanism is that does this, but something happens which means it's going to be more difficult for you next game.
Yeah. And probably for a few more games.
Yeah,
in fact,
absolutely.
Well, that's it. It could be, when we're in May, it could be 6 or 7 more games where we have to deal with these consequences of what happened.
And it has now got to the point where when we are finding out what these effects are at the end of each playthrough, we don't want to open these effects because we know they're probably going to be bad.
Yeah.
I quite like it as a concept because it means that you feel more invested in the game, for one thing, because you're permanently changing that board or changing the rules, or this is going to affect us for the next 9 months.
Yes, yeah. Literally playing it, yeah.
We're now we were originally at one point keeping in time with calendar months, and we're now 2 months behind again.
We could potentially catch up. You never know.
Yeah. The good,
especially if we win a couple of times.
I don't know how long Risk Legacy takes to play as a single game, but I suppose one advantage to, Pandemic Basic Legacy's obviously got a lot of elements with a feel on top. Pandemic Legacy and Pandemic in general is about an hour.
Yeah.
So it's not a long game either. So each episode that you play isn't horrendous. It's not like playing, 4 games of Star Wars or something like that.
I think Legacy is longer because you're having to open boxes.
There's more
you have to learn
Of
new
course,
rules.
yes, it is.
And there are new rules each time things progress, so you've got to learn a bit more.
Yes.
Make some decisions and then screw it up. I mean,
but generally speaking, I think the base game, obviously we've now got down pat because we've played it so many bloody times. A base game is about an hour, give or take, 15 minutes either side, which isn't too bad, I think, for an episode.
Good, yeah.
The one thing I was actually very wary of when Pandemic Legacy came out was the price.
We're a very price-conscious podcast. Do you realise that? We're always talking about money on this podcast.
It's more value for
it's
money.
It's always a factor.
It is.
Especially post-Brexit when we're all screwed.
That's true. It's not the objective price of the game. It's more what you get for the money. It is value for money.
Yeah.
No one wants to be ripped off. And when I first saw it, I thought, 55, 60 quid for that is like, Jesus, that's a lot. Would you get... considering you can only use it once, is it worth the money?
No, I've been thinking about that, but to complete Pandemic Legacy, it's a minimum of 12 games. If you do really badly, it's 24 games.
Exactly.
So you're looking at, as you said, an hour a game, 12 to 24 hours of playthrough for that price. I personally think that's pretty good value for money.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the bit that I was genuinely pleasantly surprised to find, that before we bought it, it's like, that's a lot of money. But now we've gone through it. We've played probably about eight playthroughs of it now, with all of our failures and successes. I already think we've had value for money, given the emotional turmoil we've suffered.
I like the way we bought it.
Well, all right.
Thanks, Steve.
Nice one, Steve. Yeah.
I was going to say the same sort of thing. So the fact that you get between 12 and 24 games out of this game, and then that's kind of it really, because you spent it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a unique experience. So realistically, I mean, I've got board games in my cupboard that I've probably played 4 or 5 times, and I really enjoy them, but that's all I've played with them. And will I ever play 12 to 24 games with them? Well, if I keep them for another 10 years, maybe. But I may well have, had to buy a load of other stuff because there's been other UK Games Expos and and Kickstarters that I've felt compelled to support.
Other expansions for Talisman, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so I think it's worth it because there is a lot in the box. A lot.
And it's all in that box. I mentioned Pathfinder card game earlier. I really like Pathfinder card game. You two have not played it. And in fact, it's like a cooperative talisman. Is one way of playing it. So we need to try that at some point. But that game has got 6 missions in that box. And if you want to continue playing it, you've got to buy the expansions. And the 6 expansions for it are around about 10 to 15 quid each. So
how much sort of gameplay do you get out of those?
Again, each game of Pathfinder is about an hour. So, and again, if you fail a mission, you have to replay it.
So each expansion, each bit of this
is about 6 hours worth of play.
6 to 12 hours of...
Yeah.
For a tenner?
That's a bit more than that, maybe 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about £2 an hour of play, basically. Which isn't bad, actually.
But
I paid more for this entertainment.
Exactly, yeah.
Still, I cancel my Netflix account. It's all good.
I paid to watch the Blair Witch Project, which, is an hour and a half of my life I'm never going to get back. Specifically to Pandemic, but I would like them to introduce, probably not in this, but season 1 of it, because I don't think it's in the book.
Bear in mind as well, this is season 1.
Yeah.
They haven't announced season 2, but the fact they've called it season 1 suggests that...
I'd like to see that...
They're optimistic, at least.
Yeah. I think they should.
By the way, you probably don't follow Board Game Geek much. Well, me and Andy have been having a discussion about how about Board Game Geek this week. Pandemic Legacy has actually been quite controversial, and it's now the number 1 game.
Really?
So it is
on Board Game Geek.
On Board Game Geek,
right.
It's the most highly rated game on Board Game Geek, and a lot of people have taken umbrage with that.
I can probably understand why, but at the same time, I can see why it is number 1 because it is very involving, very enthralling, very tense.
So is it number one all time, or just sort of sort of trending? Can you do that on board games?
There's trending. There's like a hotness chart, which basically I don't know how they work it out, but I've been led to believe it's how many people are visiting that page and the forums on that page.
Okay.
Every game you own, every game in there, you can add a score to between 1 and 10. Mm-hmm. It is the highest rated game. Of all board games.
Just goes to show you stats could probably be skewed.
Yes. Well, the Board Game Geek one's quite interesting because what they do is they put dummy scores in. So if you put just one vote for 10 in, you'll notice the average score barely moves above 5 because they've got like 100 votes of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So one person can't
So
influence
one person
everything.
can't influence it. You've
That's
got to
quite
have
clever.
thousands of... I mean, because I don't know if you use Goodreads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodreads is terrible because Goodreads is, if one 5-star vote goes in, then the average score for that book is 5.
Yeah.
And, two or three, I've looked at books and gone, oh, it's got 5 stars, and then realised it's got 3 reviews. Okay.
One of them's 5,
Amazon's
one of them's
like that.
3, and one of them's 1.
Yeah. Amazon's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look at a product and go, yes, it's got 5 stars. You look at it and go, oh, there's one guy, and his review is barely literate. Yeah, I'll be skipping that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a season 2.
I hope there is, because I would really like them to include a few of the elements they've had from the expansions.
Okay.
Like some of the in the lab stuff especially, and maybe other elements from the expansions, like maybe the bioterrorist. That would be quite interesting, but obviously we'll have to see what happens. It may be in the game we've got, I don't know, because obviously we've not finished it yet. So
True.
So going back to the question, do we like legacy games?
Well, what do you guys think of legacy type games? And I think from what we've seen so far, I think we're
are in favour.
We're in favour.
We are pro-legacy. Which sounds like some sort of horrible creed. I'm sorry, I think I might have just channeled Andy.
Everyone succumbs eventually.
So, question number 2.
Question number 3.
Three, sir.
Question number 3 is from our good friend Mr. Paul Grogan at Gaming Rules Vids.
Him again?
And, Check Games
Hi,
Edition.
Paul.
Hello. I'm going to say check out Paul Grogan, but he's doing much better than us at the moment, so you probably
Don't check him out.
No.
So, what games do you want to win the Spiel des Jahres and why? What do you think will win the Spiel des Jahres and why? What is the Spiel des Jahres? No doubt you're asking.
Gesundheit.
Yes.
It's the German Game of the Year.
Yes, it's actually 3 categories. So, Spiel des Jahres, Game of the Year. Kenner Spiel des Jahres, but my German's not very good, so I don't know what Kenner is.
Is it Champion or Deluxe or something like that?
Yeah, it's basically the connoisseur's Game of the Year.
That's it.
And then there's Kinderspiel des Jahres, which is Children's Game of the Year.
Yep.
So, I'm going to say now, we're going to ignore Kinderspiel.
High school, seriously.
Because it's not nominated, unfortunately.
But
Because
still, just pick that one.
yeah,
That's what I would like to
No.
win, but it won't.
the way they do the nominations is quite weird as well, because they've got 3 nominations and then 5 recommended games, which I think is like, okay, these are the 3 we're actually considering to win, but these are 5 games. I assume they must have narrowed it down. These are 5 games which are really good in this category, and what they aim it for is slightly different. So deluxe games probably normally what we kind of play.
Yeah.
So that's the Kenner Spiel, and Spiel des Jahres is just generic. It can be more or less anywhere on the scale, but to give you an idea of some previous Spiel des Jahres, Ticket to Ride is famously a Spiel des Jahres winner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dominion. To Spiel des Jahres in it. Basically, most of the games I've bought for Amanda are Spiel des Jahres winners.
Okay.
Interesting.
So she's at the point where she says they put that little logo on, which is like a little red pawn with this little gold wreath behind it. She'll
Pawn
go,
with a W, right?
yes.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that.
I'm just trying to picture this logo now.
Filthy gutter minds.
Yes.
You asked us to be in this podcast. Steve.
Exactly.
It's your own fault.
Yeah,
And
well,
I did warn you.
yeah, you did. To be fair, you did. Anyway, when Amanda looks at a game, if she sees the Spiel des Jahres logo, she'll go, "Oh, it's won that. I'll probably like that."
Good
Right.
chance.
So it does have a
It's got that seal of approval.
Yeah. So the current nominees for the Spiel des Jahres are Codenames, Imhotep, and Karuba.
Of which we've all played one.
Yeah. And the nominees
same one,
for Kenner Spiel are Isle of Skye, Pandemic Legacy, rewind 10 minutes if you want to know what you thought of that,
Yep.
and Time Stories.
So you've played 2 of those.
I've played
and
2 of
John
those.
and I played 1 of those. You've not
Yes.
played Time yet, have you, John?
No.
No, neither have I.
And there are some interest. To be fair, actually, I'm more interested in what's in the recommended section. I found more games that I've played in that lot than actually in the nominees. So Paul asks us basically 2 questions: what games do you want to win, and what games do you think will win? Hang on, I just realised Paul's doing some crafty marketing here.
Yeah, he is. I thought that as well.
Yeah, because Codenames
Names
is
in
up
there.
for
Exactly, yeah.
Paul,
He's fishing, basically, for a recommendation.
All right,
free
let's cut this
advertising.
section.
You've been busted, Grogan.
Oh, your money's in the post.
Okay.
Right. So I've always found that Codenames are a particularly good game.
To be honest with you, Codenames is the only one out of the Spiel des Jahres nominees we've all played.
Yeah.
In fact, any of us have played.
And as it happens, I think I'm fair in saying this, we will absolutely fucking love it.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
Great
Yeah, it's
party
great
game,
fun.
really good fun.
Yeah. And I think it deserves to win. Whether it will win, I don't know, because the German judges for this can have slightly different ideas of what we always think. But we've not. We mentioned in the last podcast we went to go play Imhotep, only to find it had sold out.
Yes.
So-
God damn it.
So we
That
couldn't
may
play
be a
it,
good indication.
which is a good indication. Yeah,
It is, yeah.
But then again, the nominees has always been announced at that point. So is that people buying it because it's good, or people buying it because it's a nominee?
It's a nominee. I
Is
think
it
there's
causation
one
or correlation?
Ooh.
Stats geeks.
hang on a minute. Get out.
And I've got no idea about Karuba. I mean,
I've even heard of it.
no. In fact,
No, all of the others at least we've heard of. Presumably we were limited to the games that are now in
Well, not knowing any better, I would think you could probably only recommend
Pandemic
games.
Legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm torn a little bit on this one between Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories, because I think Time Stories is brilliant and I think Pandemic Legacy is brilliant. I'm not quite sure which one's better.
So in a quick 30-second run through, what's Time Stories?
So Time Stories is a story-driven game. You are basically Quantum Leap,
Right.
and you are going back in
Oh, boy.
time, and you jump into someone else's body, and you've got to solve a mystery. And
Right.
you've got a certain amount of time in which to do it. If you don't solve the mystery in that amount of time, you get rewound to the beginning, knowing the information you know, and start the mystery again.
Oh, this is the one you kept screwing up, despite the fact that it's completely within your control.
Yes,
Yeah.
the first time we played, we got horribly wrong. The last... so there are several expansions for it. So you get one module in the base game,
Yeah.
and then you get these modules that you plug in. And I bought all the ones you can buy so far, which gives you an idea of how much I like this game. I bought every expansion
Yeah.
as soon as it comes out. I actually love the concept because there's a lot of thinking involved. There's a lot of teamwork involved because you've got to pick the right characters and get characters to do the right things.
Right.
So in some ways, actually quite similar to Pandemic, because it's to do with picking the right characters. You're
Yeah.
all working as a team, coming up with the same sort of strategy. Hopefully, it's not just one guy going, you go there, and there.
So go back to Paul's question. What I want to win, I'm torn between Pandemic and Time Stories because I think they're both great games. And they're great games for slightly different reasons. I think Isle of Skye will win. I don't know much about Isle of Skye, except that it looks like a tea towel you buy from an Edinburgh gift shop.
And it's an island off the Scottish coast.
I'm
Makes
not
good
kidding.
whiskey too, to be
The
fair.
artwork on this game is so twee. I just straight away kind of went, "Ugh." But Isle of Skye, I've heard people explain it as being like a really advanced version of Carcassonne. So it's tile laying and putting meeples down on tiles. But I'm not going to say any more than that because I don't know any more than that. I really don't know much about Isle of Skye. But my gut feeling is that game is more in line with the kind of games the Spiel des Jahres the Spiel des Jahres judges, choose.
Okay.
And whereas I think Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories are more the populist vote. So I think, as I said, they're the games we play, so we're more likely to choose them, but I have a funny feeling that Isle of Skye will win.
That they will disagree.
Yeah. And
Well, they're wrong.
as for the main
Well, not
one...
necessarily. We haven't played it yet.
They're wrong. They're disagreeing with us.
As for the main Spiel des Jahres, again, we've all said Codenames because we all love Codenames. It's already my most played game of this year, one shadow of a doubt. But I think Imhotep again is more the kind of game which The thing to probably say is, Paul, you're probably asking the wrong people, because we've not played enough games of that type, and we don't own enough games of the Spiel des Jahres type either.
For the record, Steve, did you just say we've not played enough games?
Of that type.
No.
No, the first few words were better. You get rid of the last few words.
We've not played enough games.
No, so we need to dedicate some more time to playing games.
The number of games we need to play is n+1, where n is the number of games you've already played.
Yes.
Exactly. That will always be true.
Yes.
Absolutely. Right. So, to Amazon.
We don't need to go to Amazon, just play what we've got.
To the shelves.
We're starting to wander on to nonsense now.
I think we've had enough.
I think it's time to draw it to a close. Yeah, and me and John are almost out of beer. So.
Oh, well, in that case, we definitely that's game over.
Thank you very much for listening. This has been Polyhedron Collidecast, episode 7, The Farce Awakens. Sorry, I love that joke so much I had to do it twice.
It's a good one.
If you want to leave us a review on iTunes, we would be very much appreciated. 5 stars if you prefer, but just something on there so it looks like someone listens to us and good enough. You can check us at www.polyhedroncollider.com. You can go to Twitter at polyhedronc, as well as
at Sonic H
and at
Andy Lewis
and at John_Cage.
We're also on Facebook. www.facebook.com/Polyhedron Collider. Nice simple one. We're also on G+, but as we discovered looking at some of the numbers, we actually get more traffic off 4chan than we do off G+.
No one uses Google Plus anymore. It's dead.
No,
We're going to stop mentioning it after this.
Well, yeah.
I'm not sure what to make of the fact that we get more traffic from 4chan.
That we have very discerning listeners.
Or not.
Yeah, if you have a question for discussion for the next episode, you can send us a question via Twitter, via Facebook. There is an email address on polyhedroncollider.com. You can also add a comment onto YouTube, because we put all these podcasts on YouTube with a static image. Sorry, you don't get to see our ugly mushies.
Probably for the best.
So thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back in hopefully 3 weeks.
Indeed. Toodle pip.
See you soon, guys.